network management system made by the firm SolarWinds. But again, Carl, to your point, it's a story we've been following for years. The Russians in particular, very aggressive, along with the Chinese, who have focused a lot of their attention, of course, on corporate America and stealing trade.
Long global cyber spying campaign. Eamon Javers has more on that. Hi, Eamon.
Yeah, Carl, that's right. Reuters first reporting this yesterday, and what we know from their report is that Treasury and a unit of the Commerce Department that focuses on internet policy, both of those agencies were hacked, and the hackers had access to their emails. We also know that the attack led to a National Security Council meeting at the White House over the weekend. That's how seriously it's being taken at the highest levels of government. The investigation by the FBI and others is now in its early stages, but the cybersecurity firm FireEye, which has some experience with this, which itself was hacked and revealed that last week. FireEye says this attack is actually bigger than just Treasury and Commerce. This is a global attack. It's on public and private institutions, so private companies are involved in this hack attack as well. It began by the spring of 2020, so it's been underway for some months now. The attack uses IT software and stealthily gathers information, including getting into the systems and then lying dormant for 2 weeks before starting to exfiltrate the data. Now, the Russians are denying that they had anything to do with this. Of course, they would do that even if they did have something to do with it. And FireEye says that it is now in the process, guys, of notifying companies and entities of all kinds if they have been the victim of this hack attack. So we're going to learn a lot more about this in the days and weeks to come. Back over to you.
Eamon, the Journal story on this quoted a person familiar who said that the campaign was a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of severity and national security implications. I mean, does that kind of tone fit with your reporting?
It fits with what I'm hearing from intelligence experts about this. I mean, the danger is once you're inside, you can certainly gather intelligence and information about just about everything that the U.S. government is doing. But then also you can take steps as a nation state. If it was the Russians, they can actually get ahead of our decision making as they watch our policymakers emailing each other and making decisions. They can get ahead of that and foil U.S. efforts on the world stage in any number of arenas. So it's a really wide-ranging and potentially very damaging hack here, Carl.
Eamon, maybe I'm asking a question that's too difficult to answer at this stage, but is there a significance to this hack being discovered right as we're getting ready to transition from one administration to another? Does it make it any more difficult to follow up? Does it make it any more difficult for the new administration to get its feet on the ground?
Well, it certainly has a lot of implications for the new administration coming in, knowing that all of these systems may have been compromised, and it's unclear exactly the extent of that. They're going to have to get their arms around that as best they can. But I think Sue Gordon put it well on our air earlier this morning when she said, former U.S. national security official said, look, you know, the problem here is that everybody was focused on the election hacking, and what happened was something very different. So you can be looking in one direction, and the hackers hit you where you least expected. And so there's this sort of double take effect here as people are waking up to this and trying to figure out exactly the scale of the damage that's happened.
Yeah, Eamon, appears to be pretty extensive. Thank you. Now I want to get to our Deirdre Bosa with Google suffering major outages earlier today. Deirdre?
John, that outage took down more than a dozen Google services, including Gmail, YouTube, and Drive, lasting about 40 minutes earlier this morning. Now, about an hour ago, Google Cloud's Twitter account posted, today Google experienced an authentication system outage for approximately 45 minutes due to an internal storage quota issue. This was resolved. All services are now restored. In more simple terms, guys, this was not a cyber attack, but an internal issue, and we were told that no security was compromised. But obviously, this is also a reminder of the high stakes of the current moment that we are in. More people, companies, teachers, students than ever are relying on digital services amid the pandemic, powered by the cloud. The biggest players, of course, being Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. One school that uses Google Classroom had to tell virtual students to sit tight. Organizations that use services for voice calling over the internet, they had to use the actual telephone, if you can imagine that. Now, the last time that we saw such an extensive disruption was Amazon's AWS outage just at the end of November, a few weeks ago. That's, of course, the cloud unit that powers the websites and operations of many online services, including Roku, Ring, and SiriusXM Radio. That disruption, guys, lasted several hours. It again related to an internal capacity issue. We will keep our eye out for more details on what happened, perhaps a post-mortem analysis similar to Amazon's. But John, this is a point that I know you've talked about, particularly in the last few weeks, as that digital demand increases and surges. The back end, the cloud infrastructure and services, in some cases is getting overwhelmed, and you have blips like this.
Dee, thank you for that. Deirdre Bosa watching that outage from earlier this morning. Keep your eyes on Tesla today. About $20 off of the all-time high that we saw last week. But, of course, some developments over the weekend. Company shut down the Model S and X production lines for about 18 days. That's according to an email viewed by CNBC. Employees were offered a week of pay to cover one of the weeks and asked to take 5 unpaid days off or try to find some work in other areas of the factory. We'll be right back. Stay with us.